Hello everyone, welcome to Jamesway's Webinar Wednesdays. I'm Victoria Frail, I'm the Training and Documentation Manager here at Jamesway. I'd like to introduce to you my colleague, Phillip Perry. Phillip has 26 years of turkey hatchery management experience, and I'm sure a lot of you know him, and he is a friendly face as he is one of our consultants and technical advisors and has visited many hatcheries around the world. Welcome, Phillip, and thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I just want to start out and make sure that everyone is comfortable with the controls. In the top left corner of your panel, you're going to find 4 buttons. The first one is for your audio and video settings. If you can't hear us, that's probably where you need to go. Then there's also the Q&A. That's where I'd like you to enter any questions you have for Phillip or I during the presentation, and we'll answer them live on air as much as possible. There's chat. Feel free to chat with all the other attendees. If you need to send our moderator, Krista, or myself or Phillip some information, you can select the chat option of just going to the panelists, and that will come to us. And then the final button is to raise your hand. Can everyone just give me a raised hand right now? Just let me know that you found the controls fine. Oh, looking good. Great, everyone. Thank you. So as I said, feel free to enter your questions at any time. We'll get to them as much as we can. If we don't get to your question on the air, or if it's something that we need to discuss with some members here and get some clarification, we will send you an email back. So please don't send your questions anonymously. We won't be sharing your name to the rest of the group anyways, although the chat will share your names. Like I said, if anybody's having technical difficulties, Krista is here to help you just through the all panelists chat option. So on to today's topic. Today we're going to be discussing those 3 days no one talks about, what happens in the hatcher. I know I've attended a lot of presentations on incubation, what to do right, what can happen, what's going wrong, what you can do when you do your breakouts, what you'll see that indicates incubation problems. But I really haven't seen much about what happens in the hatcher other than, it finishes off all that good work in your incubator. So what we're going to talk about today is what exactly is happening in that hatcher and what you can do to make sure that all that good work is maintained and you get those beautiful platinum quality chicks out of your machines. So Phillip, let me put up your presentation for you here. Did that wrong, sorry.
There we go.
All right, there we go. All right, Phillip, go ahead.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, it's indeed a pleasure and an honor to be speaking to you all today, and I'm looking forward to it. Just a couple of things I want to say up front. We will be referencing chickens today, so all my turkey friends out there and ducks, just to let you know, we will be using chickens as our main reference, but they both, as far as avian species are concerned, once they get in the hatcher, it's pretty much 3 days in there, same environmental needs. So don't be too upset if I'm not referencing turkeys or ducks. But you should be able to glean from what we present here today. In looking at the topics, as far as the hatcher, the definition is a machine used to maintain the proper conditions for embryos during the final few, usually 3 days, in which the eggs are hatched. This is, again, as Victoria referenced, we often focus more on the incubator because what we've done in the incubator shows up in the hatcher, but there is many opportunities in the hatcher to produce better quality chicks just by some of these things that we'll be discussing, our transfer, maintaining. This will be in reference to once we have done our transfer and are holding the eggs, getting ready to hatch, the hatching, and then we'll also discuss some of the profiling today. So when we talk about the first topic will be on the multi-stage, and we'll be talking about some of our transfer patterns here. There are 3 components to the transfer pattern. That's placement of eggs within a given column, be the up and down, and the placement of the columns in a rack or on a dolly, and where they end up as far as the hatcher, where that dolly ends up in the hatcher. We emphasize quite a bit in our training, in our manuals, where the eggs are located at in the incubator, where they need to be placed in the hatcher. A lot of this, the reason we do that is because there is different temperature locations, gradients in the incubation process that we can put say it's a little warmer in one spot, it can end up in a cooler spot in the hatcher and sort of balance things out. So that is why we put a lot of emphasis on our transfer patterns and our procedures. So looking at the PX hatcher, you would have your 3 dollies as you transfer eggs that are located in the column furthest from the exit end of the incubator. Well, we want those to be located near the sidewalls of the hatcher. And also, as we pull our egg incubator rack out of the machine, we start from the left to the right, working with these. And we're all aware the Texas transfer is the way we like to, is the way that it's really required to transfer this machine properly. In the two-door hatcher, very similar. The eggs that are furthest away from the exit end up in the outside walls of the hatcher. Again, this sort of references where the temperature is in the incubator. The eggs furthest, which would be considered a little warmer, will be placed on the outside where the hatcher runs a little cooler and balances out the machine. Again, as you see the diagram on your screen, the gentleman is transferring from left to right when he does from right to left as he does that to orientate the tray in the correct position. When we look at the single stage for our single stage attendees today, we start at the top right-hand column of an incubator rack, and we move the trays downwards to the bottom. And what this does, this puts the top tray in the incubator rack in the bottom location of our hatcher. So we would start on one side, go all the way down with that column, and then go to the left stack, start at the top. Those top eggs end up at the bottom of the hatcher dolly. I've had a couple of instances here recently to where automatic transfer machines have been, as we're getting more and more automation, I've seen in platinums that a Texas transfer is designed to transfer the platinum. The robots are set up that way to manage the eggs, just to ensure that that they are put in the proper location, and be aware of that up front, so that we can get orientate these eggs in their correct location to get the most out of your hatcher.
That's a really good point.
Thank you. Moving along on single stage, so this is another orientation we look at with the single stage. Here we have a P60 with two P30 hatchers. What we do is the inward racks toward the ECU are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6 in the middle rows. These particular eggs are always placed in one hatcher, and then 7, 8 middle racks, 9 through 12 end up in the next hatcher. The reason we do this is because the eggs toward the center ECU tend to be a little accelerated on hatch day, a couple of hours, and this will give you time to pull your first hatcher, and the other eggs in the second P30 can be delayed a couple hours as you service and prepare the chicks from your first pull. As we look at the P120 with 3 P40s, all the inward racks 1 through 8 are placed into one hatcher. Middle racks 9 through 16 are placed in another hatcher, and then our outside racks are placed in the last hatcher. And again, this is to orientate the eggs to put them in the best environment, because as your chicks hatch, you want them to all hatch uniformly. If there is some that are, your hatch window will be much greater. So this is why we recommend transferring in this order of your machine. As you can see, this all begins in the egg room. So we want to make sure that our eggs are placed properly, labeled. You know where 24 is in the egg room before you ever get to your incubator. And so you can place all your eggs, and then when you get them in the hatcher, it's just a matter of pulling. A concern that I have seen recently with that can be with single stage incubation is that there'll be one whole side of a machine will be transferred, and that disrupts airflow. I'm sure Victoria could comment on that. So it just puts all this load on one side of the machine that those, while they're waiting to be transferred, will not get the proper environment. It can get very hot in those locations. So that's why another reason why we go side to side when we unload our incubator. So here are a few things, reminder list for egg transfer. During the transfer, handle eggs with care. We, as hatchery people, as transfer crews, handle millions of eggs, sometimes a week. I know that there can be a lot of carelessness, and you hear those trays bang on the table. Just be conscientious that we are still handling eggs here. And we do not remove all the incubator racks, which we touched on from one side. We don't want to transfer eggs into wet hatcher baskets. As the chick hatch, it has an open abdomen that can drag across that tray, and that wetness is a very good place for bacteria, even though it may be disinfectant, but it just it does not allow for the abdomen to heal properly. We don't allow eggs to cool excessively during transfer. Along with one transfer has started, it must be completed for all the racks. So again, if you start a transfer and then it's break time, I've seen racks left in the transfer room while you go take your break and then come back. So just coordinate all that so that we keep a really good environment. We don't want to affect anything that would harm our hatchability or our quality. Ensure all the dollies are positioned properly. We discussed that. And when the hatcher's reached its temperature and humidity set points, ensure all your alarms are active. A lot of times the first machine is transferred, it can sit there for 4 or 5 hours in an alarm state, but the alarm will be bypassed, as well as our high temp backup. All these should be checked to make sure that your alarms are activated as soon as possible. I think this is do we want to keep going?
Let's take a minute here and throw up a poll. We just like to know from everyone what kind of machines you have out there, just to make sure we cover on single stage, multi-stage, whatever it is you have. So our moderators just put up a poll. If everyone could vote, we'll give it a few seconds there, and see what everyone's got going on. So far, that was really interesting for me. I do agree that I've definitely seen incubator racks just left when people go on break in different hatcheries I've visited, and that the point about the automatic transfer and also not emptying one side of the single stage incubator is really important, because at that point you are going to be short circuiting the air and starving those birds on the one side, while the other side that's empty gets all the ventilation essentially. So we'll go ahead and share the results with everyone. It looks like we have a nice even sort of split between Jamesway single and multi-stage. Then we also have a lot of other brand single stage, which is nice to see. And a bunch of you, I'm sure, out there with that mix of both the Jamesway single and multi, and other brand single and multi. So thank you everyone for joining in. No matter what kind of machine you have, that's really great. Thank you.
So moving along, we've gone over our transfer and our procedures. Again, things done outside the hatcher, but it's very important to where it ends up in the hatcher. This next slide, I had 4 bullet points at the beginning, and the second was maintaining. And this is really, there's only one slide for this. It's just a process of holding the embryos at this state in a comfortable environment where we don't influence anything that may be detrimental to the hatch at this point. We do with our single stage, and we'll be talking about multi-stage a little bit later about profiling. We do begin dropping temperature after transfer. We don't want to drop transfer all at once. So it is a gradual period. And other than, as this slide shows, the gentleman monitoring the machine, we're just sitting here waiting for them to begin the hatch process. The hatch window, I'm sure you all have heard or are aware of, is the time used to describe from when the first chicks begin to hatch until the last finish. In single stage incubation, typically this is a 24-hour hatch window. We see this for chickens with broilers, layers, turkeys, ducks. They all, coming from single stage, seem to have the hatching process is pretty much the same. And in multi-stage, we look at a 30-hour hatch window from the time the first chick begins to hatch till the time the hatch is finished. So as we look at these two aspects, we'll be looking at single stage first. And to follow this window, we can follow the humidity bell curve. There's a couple of places to follow this curve that we'll discuss in a little bit, but as the chicks start to hatch, humidity starts to rise from the natural state of their process of releasing moisture in the air. At the peak of the hatch, 12 hours, we should see the dome of reach the dome of the bell and be the peak of the hatching, and in the remaining 12 hours, the hatching becomes less and less until they're finished. Usually, for the broiler industry, we're looking at about, after the finish process, another 6 hours of holding to ensure we have all of our chicks dried and everything. In turkeys, from what I've seen, and in ducks, it's a little bit longer. I've seen anywhere from 12 hours of holding up to 16 hours. It just depends, I guess, on how far your birds have to travel after they hatch. But that's really the difference that I see in those processes. And then, of course, in layers, we need a maturity to do the sexing. So take a look at the single stage profile. This is an example. I want to mention that as far as platinum hatchers, we're recommending that no humidity be used. So we just turn the humidity off in our machine, unplug it. And what we are doing is we're using the humidity profile as a guideline to follow the hatch. So what this allows us to do is to know when the hatch starts, when it peaks, and when it finishes. If you have humidity on, this will influence this if your hatching is on one side or the other. Oftentimes I'll go in and visit hatcheries and they say, well, I have a double peak hatch. And if I look, they have humidity on, the hatch starts 4 hours earlier than what their profile is. The chicks take the humidity up, peak, start to come down, and then artificial humidity comes on. So you get this double peak. And it's not very healthy for your chicks at that point. Again, on the other side of this, as it starts to decline and then you have a humidity rise, your heat index goes up with a higher humidity in the machine. And again, these influence the quality of your chicks. So basically in our profile, the humidity profile aspect of it is used to determine where we are as far as the starting, the peak, and the finish. In the diagram on the left of the profile, at 20 days, 2 hours, this will be for a 510-hour profile. we see that that is our first step of our humidity rise. That's where we would expect our first chicks to start hatching. At 20 days, 14 hours, 12 hours later would be our peak. That would be our highest humidity point. And then at 21 days, 2 hours, we are down to 42 and then on down to 40 for the remainder of the hatch. We are at 95 degrees, holding our chicks until pull. So this is the type of environment that we create for our chicks. To view this, we have a couple of places you can look at on your display of your hatcher. You can follow your profile. On this particular example, you'll see that the chicks started to hatch on time, peaked very, very well, and then finished on time. So this would be, this aspect, we would know where we are as far as our hatching, if any adjustments would be needed. There is some adjustment that can be made if you're not on time, or if you're too early or too late. We just want that temperature to be where it needs to be during the hatching process. If we look on HatchCom, again, we can select our humidity, and the solid lines on the humidity on the green shows the profile, and then the peak and where the finish is. On this particular hatch, I would say this hatch may have been delayed just a little bit, or at least extended at the end. This also may have been a partial filled machine. So there are factors that can influence this, but we still get a very good idea of our time. If you look at the cursor where it's located, there is no humidity activity at this time telling us that we are above the profile. So anyway, that's the hatching process. It looks like we have a question.
We do have a question. So we have an anonymous question. The person is asking, should you give some extra heat stimuli to trigger late hatchers?
Yes, this can be done. Yeah, I see this quite a bit. Again, I would make sure it's within your window, the late hatchers. If it's or if it was a positioning at that point, because just remember, if you're going to help your late hatchers, you're going to be affecting the ones that are hatched, and so sometimes I see a lot of emphasis put into that, 2 or 3% that we need and we're trying to get, but it can be also be detrimental. So just be careful, when we raise it.
How much heat is that? Like, how much are you looking at raising your temperature?
I wouldn't.
What do you think?
Maybe 4 tenths.
4 tenths.
I wouldn't do a whole lot because we don't want to affect our chicks that are already out on those late hatch.
We've been sort of an extension to that from Michael. He's asking, are you saying that the humidity data is what addresses the temperature adjustment? So are you going to base your temperature adjustment on the humidity, I think is what he's...
On the humidity, start, peak, and finish, yes, I would.
Yeah?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
Just to keep them as comfortable, and again, our heat index down at that point. If this, with everything was moved well advanced, they're going to get that higher temperature at a point when they are when they need cooler temperatures.
Right.
At that point.
Right.
So.
And then we have one more on that from Tony, and he's asking, how does hatch sense influence this, and how does hatch sense sort of play into this humidity peak?
Well, it's a little bit different animal altogether in what it does. As far as following humidity on it, we would probably look more at the spray pattern of on HatchCom. Following that is how much the spray is coming on and off.
Okay.
And at the completion of that, this particular webinar today, we are not addressing hatch sense. but feel free to contact us, and
Definitely.
we can go over that with you some more.
Sounds good.
So we're going to move on now to multi-stage. We're talking about our VX hatcher and our two-door hatcher. The manual describes us to how to monitor this type of hatching is to open the doors 12 hours before your pull time. You should not have any more than 60% of the chicks should be hatched out at this time, and 10% of those chicks should be wet or just hatched. But I would like, there is another way, if you have HatchCom, there's another way to monitor this, and that is in the humidity activity. So on the multi-stage, the hatch window, by watching your humidification activity on HatchCom, you can tell when your hatch starts, when it peaks, and when it finishes. And what we see, this would be when we say humidification activity, this is when your solenoid kicks on, calls for water, and sprays into the cabinet. What we are monitoring is the amount of time that spray is being turned on. So in this particular curve, we'll see the start, and then the peak of the hatch will be where it goes to no humidification is required. We have a natural humidity, and then the finish, it gradually starts to come back on. Here on HatchCom, we show this particular graph, and at the bottom, we selected vents. In our vents, we've selected spray. The only thing that I have selected here is spray. And so you can see it was on that transfer about 25%. And then as our chicks begin to hatch, the spray declined. And then on the red cursor, you can see where it went to 0. There was no humidification being required because of the natural humidity being released as the chicks begin to hatch. As this begins to climb, the hatch is on the downward, on the 15-hour on multi-stage on the completion end, and so this would be how you would follow. If you look at the humidity line, humidity is measured in wet bulb in the multi-stage, and it's very, you can see some changes there where the humidity did go up a little, but it is such a subtle change that it is best to monitor your hatching process in multi-stage by using the spray value. So in your graph options, when you set your graphs up, you would go to the event options, and then you would just select spray. You could select those other events and tell you how much you're on or how little. But for this particular aspect of learning the pattern of my hatch, where it's beginning to hatch, where it peaks, and where it's finishing, this is what we would use. Continue here with the multi-stage. There is some things that we can do, and I'm starting to see more and more people profiling their multi-stage hatchers. If you think about it, your hatchers are no longer multi-stage. We've taken one age group of eggs and put them into the hatcher. So technically, the hatcher is now a single stage hatcher, but it's still part of the multi-stage configuration of your machines in your hatching process. So to develop a profile for your multi-stage, you would need to have either a PS501 or the PT100 controller. And I know in my travels there's still some EM controllers out there, but you would have to get in the machine and change thermostats, and it just doesn't work. So these are the tools needed if you want to begin a multi-stage hatcher profile. When we look at it, it's usually very simple. As far as the on the HatchCom, if you look at the profile there is only 3 columns. We only have the day, the temperature, in the humidity settings. That's really all we have. The tool that hatcheries that use this find the most beneficial is being able to cool their chicks down from not going back, opening the door, seeing where it's at. They can monitor their hatch, know where it is completing, and then at that time enact a profile. So if you have a pretty standard supply of eggs, routine hatch times coming off, you can set this profile up. Normally, for those multi-stage attendees, you see that we have on the profile the day beginning at 18 and 20. From day 0 to 18 is just a holding time. The reason that temperature is high is for drying out purposes. Again, this is an example. And then once the eggs are transferred, this is a percentage of a day. At 0.17 days, then we drop temperature to 98 degrees. At 20 days, 12% of a day, it would drop to 97.5. And so we're doing 5-degree increments, which is a little bit, could run you into a high temp alarm. But anyway, by the time we get to 20 days, 12 hours, we're down to 95 degrees, holding that until we complete the pull. So you would, to enter the profile, you would start it out as when you set your eggs. If you set your eggs on, let's say August 28th at 6 a.m., then you would start the profile date the same, August, those same days, 6 a.m. And then this would calculate your time for your hatch and your pull. Some people have changed this to 3 days. They'll just have day 1, day 2, day 3, and day 0. But I don't know. I find this with my single stage background to be much easier to put in the right time in the day. To the right is just a kind of an example of profiling where we would begin. Again, that's a little warm there, 98.5, but anyway, as you would drop the temperature, as your hatching starts, we would drop the temperature on down. I have seen some hatcheries feel like when they've taken their vent temps of their chicks that they even like to go a little cooler. In multi-stage, the room would really have to have a good climate to where you could drop the room down to 72, 70 degrees Fahrenheit to reach these cooler temperatures. But again, the dividend, the payoff on the other end is well worth it. A few things I want to go through with are the precautions on doing these type of controllers. And you can read these with me. With the PS501 controller, it does not support the profiles directly. Therefore, Hatchcom manages all the profile, making profile changes at the proper times. So those of you who have the single stage, your profile is programmed into the machine itself, into the SMA 111. But with the multi-stage, there is no, it cannot hold the profile. Mm-hmm. So therefore, it is all of it is generated from Hatchcom. So in saying that, if Hatchcom is not running or cannot communicate with the machine will not follow the profile. So what this means is that the profile will run with the displayed set point. So most, if you're going to do something like that, you may want to set it at 97 degrees in case of a failure or something. That would give you time to fix the machine, get things going properly, and then enable the profile back on. Number 3, Hatchcom automatically locks the set points in profile mode. Thus, they cannot be changed on the machine display. So, when your Hatchcom is communicating, connected properly to your machine, it makes no difference what you do with the values of that machine. It will not change with the thumb wheel on the PT100 or the settings on the PS501. So turning the machine power off if you have a power glitch, and again, Hatchcom will relock them immediately if there is no communication problem. Hatchcom, as you know, we recommend that a uninterrupted power supply always be supplied to Hatchcom so that it can be up and running when your power comes back on. And another thing with Hatchcom, with multi-stage compared to single stage, is there are no alarm override features on the controllers. So large set point changes could result in alarms being generated. And on hatchers, we're half a degree for an alarm being generated. So again, in bold red here, a stable connection between Hatchcom and your PC and hatchers are required for these profiles to work. So that kind of concludes. I'd just like to mention at this point, if you haven't worked with profiles before and you'd like some more information on this, just contact us, let us know, and we can assist you. And we are developing a program to paper so you will be able to profile your multi-stage.
For sure.
That's our conclusion.
Thank you. That was really interesting. So we're now going to open it up for open questions. And we do have one already. So the first one is from Mark, and Mark is asking, what rate of evaporation at transfer and chick yield at pull does Jamesway recommend? For chicks, is it for multi-stage or? Well, for multi-stage, yeah, multi-stage, we tried to hit the 12% at that time. For single stage, because we utilize CO2 to break down the shell cuticle, we see more like a 9 to 11% on our single stage. As far as yields in chickens, usually 60, I see 67, 68. Again, it depends. Usually 67, 68 will give you a well-hydrated chick to put out there. I do know in turkeys and ducks, they like their placement, they like them to be on down. I've seen 63%. It's just all kind of dependent or relevant to how far your chicks have to travel and what condition you want them to be in. Great, thank you. Thank you everyone for your questions so far. I do want to remind everyone we do have a webinar specific email, webinars@jamesway.com, and you can send in any questions if you happen to think of them after, or also if there's any specific topics you would like us to cover with any of our experts here at Jamesway. We'd be glad to get them on next month's or another webinar so we can discuss. We do have another question. This is from Tony again. Thanks, Tony. He's asking if you have a spreadsheet that can be used for handling weight loss and other processes that you could share with our viewers.
Not readily available, but we can send out.
We can definitely send you something. We just don't have anything on the laptop we're using that we can actually share. Sorry about that. Thank you, though. That was a good question. So if there are no further questions, we'll probably shut that down there. I hope that was really helpful to everyone.
Yes.
Philip and I are always here along with the rest of the Jamesway team if you do have any questions. I've definitely learned a lot today. That was really informative for me. So our next webinar, which will be in October, is the 5 things you may not know about Hatchcom, and we'll be having Ronald and Curtis come on to discuss Hatchcom and how it works from both the machine side and the ventilation side, and go over that with you. As I mentioned at the start, if you want to come back and watch this again, maybe you want to share it with some colleagues in your organization. In about a week, we should be sending out our post-attendee email to you, and in that will be the link to the YouTube video. It should be on our Jamesway Webinars YouTube, and you'll be able to watch it directly from there. Oh, we have a new question from Mark, different Mark. He's asking what your fan speed should be in the hatchers. I'm assuming that's single stage.
Typically, it would depend on the type of hatcher. P20 normally runs a slower speed. P30 again a little bit faster, and then the higher speed in the P40. Typically, I'm thinking like in a P40 we would be 70 for day 19, 80 for day 20, and then 90% at day 21. And then for P30, it would be 60, 70, 80. And then for the P20, even a lesser fan speed. The fans are configured, as you know, an ECU. It's the same ECU in a P20 as is in a P40. So therefore, that's why we can have. It's a good question. We can have too much air velocity in our smaller machines and not enough in our larger machines.
Mark has responded and said that he does have P30s. Now on the P30s, because the powered exhaust was an option on those, at least in the Platinum 1 version, does the powered exhaust change where your fan speed is going to be set?
I haven't really adjusted it any.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be about the same.
Yeah.
Great, thank you, Mark. From Michael, he will be transferring from multi-stage, I believe, Super J's into P30 hatchers. What sort of profiling should he be doing in that situation?
I can send you a profile, but basically, Michael, the window is a 30-hour window. So even though it's being hatched in the multi-stage, when it arrives in the single stage hatcher, it still takes you still have a 30-hour window. So we just extend the window out to match the beginning of the hatch, the peak, the finish, and then the holding process. So you would just need to stretch it out to 30 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a good question, and a lot of our customers have that same situation.
Definitely, it's definitely a popular choice I've been seeing in layouts when I was still in that group. Now, why is that hatch window different from the single stage to the multi-stage? Is it just due to that embryo customization we have in the single stage?
Part of that, and part of just the temperature gradients throughout the cabinet. Okay. It just gives them they just take a little longer for that window to begin. Some of them are actually a little earlier, and some end up, and so the whole hatch is actually a little earlier than a single stage machine, because we have more control over a single stage. So that's why we just need the extra time. So some hatch a little earlier.
We have another question from Tony. He's saying there's some space in the hatcher when the trolleys are in the machine. Do you need to place those trolleys with the spaces closer to the fans or to the walls? Are you splitting that gap? What's the plan there?
You should always have all of your baskets in your hatcher, distribute your air properly, and baskets go to the outside wall. Okay. And also the same as an incubator. But if you notice on the outside wall, there's what we call a baffle or a deflector shield at the bottom, and it has a slight angle so that when the air comes over the top of the trays and goes down, it hits that baffle and it throws the air back up and through the eggs back to the ECU. If there's a gap between that baffle, you said it a minute ago, at least past the resistance, it's just going to go, the air will not go through your baskets like you need it. With your chicks, it'll go underneath the basket. So yeah, push them to the outside and to the back wall tight.
Jeremy is asking, will we make the PowerPoint we used available for future reference? Yeah, I think we should be able to throw that up on the website, and as I said, you'll also be able to rewatch the video in case there's some points you want to actually hear Philip's talking points on again.
Yeah.
Then we have a question from Hamed. He's asking, in machines with PT100s, we are usually encountering a problem with a few exhausted hatched chickens randomly on different machines at different spots at hour 503. What are the possible reasons?
Ventilation would be
The room ventilation.
room ventilation, room temperature. Also the damper opening is the damper could be over ventilating. The machine just really wants to sit there. It doesn't want to be pushed, doesn't want to have the air pushed through it, and doesn't really want to have the air pulled through it. It just wants to and then if we have to do one, either push air or pull air, then we disrupt the airflow throughout the cabinet.
Okay.
And disrupt that. But that would be the first place. I would just make sure my plenum pressures are correct, room pressure is correct, and right room environment.
Yeah, for sure. And if you do have any questions on the set points that we really would be looking for in multi-stage or single-stage machines, email us at webinars@jamesway.com, and I can send you out our latest specs on room conditions at any time that you'd like. We have Bill, and Bill is asking when their addition is completed, so they are putting in some platinums at his hatchery. He will be transferring from multi-stage to single-stage. They'll be using P40 hatchers, and that's because they plan to eventually have P120s in location. So they'll need to be transferring multi-stage into P40 hatchers. What sort of considerations does he have there, particularly on transfer? How should he be transferring those?
I think as far as the orientation of the eggs, he still should probably do a Texas transfer, so we'll be going into 2 stacks, and then as far as profile is concerned, just you can have 20 profiles, so you can have a profile specifically for multi-stage and a profile for your platinum. I see that a lot of hatcheries that share multi-stage machines in the platinum.
And that's something I think we'll definitely work with you a little more, Bill, once your machines go in there and spend some time and make sure we get everything right for you. Tony's asking, can you get hatch loss or chick quality loss from using P40 hatchers in a P30 configuration, or setting your P40 hatchers with only 30,000 eggs instead of?
Our machines are designed to run full. When I'm asked this question, it is designed to run full. However, normally there is not much of a loss in those 2 areas you referenced, but it just seems like it takes a little bit longer.
You just don't have that heat there from the birds, right?
Yeah, and you don't have the humidity build up.
Yeah.
Different things like that. So whether or not you could critique a profile just for that, we're basically at Jamesway. We try to just run 1 profile, and for our layers, for our broilers, and just adjust set time. That you can get a lot of profiles, but whenever you don't have the machine full, then you should consider going through a profile with a couple of tenths warmer. There's different things like that you can do to help not lose those. And like I say, I don't know whether you actually lose them or if you just don't get enough time.
Mm-hmm. Now, in that scenario as well, it's important to note that you do want to put those empty baskets still in the hatcher, correct? So that you do have the correct airflow profiles, and you don't have any short circuiting of air past those chicks.
Right, correct.
Thank you, everyone. Those have been great questions. Lots of things to think about, I think. Maybe give it a minute more, see if anyone thinks of anything else, and then if that's it.
Don't get too complicated.
Don't get too complicated with it. Right, well, thank you again, everyone. Be certain to send us an email or even call in. I think Philip's in office here in Cambridge for the rest of today, at least. And, if you think of anything as soon as we hang up that darn, I wish I'd asked that. And we'll definitely see if we can help you out. Please join us again in October. We're going to be going over some things in HatchCom that you may not know. And we also have November and December some exciting topics coming up. If you'd like to suggest anything, please do send it in. And thank you so much for joining us and watching. We're going to shut down now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Krista.